Shalom, I'm Rabbi Michael Panitz, Rabbi of Temple Israel of Norfolk, Virginia, speaking to you from the pulpit of our synagogue. This is the fourth in a series of 4 messages on Hanukkah. This message is entitled, The Number 25 and the Christmas-Hanukkah Connection. This year, Hanukkah begins on December 25th. A nice time to be reflecting on the possible connection of the two holidays. Well-meaning people ask me if Hanukkah is the Jewish Christmas. The simple answer is no. But there's a complicated answer too, and it has to do with the strange coincidence of the day of the month on which each holiday falls. Hanukkah falls on the 25th day of Kislev, the month that generally coincides with December. That is decidedly unusual for a Jewish holiday. Our other holidays generally fall on the new moon, which is the first of the month, or the full moon, which is the 15th. Obviously, these are lunar months. Shavuot, Pentecost, the main exception, falls on the first quarter of the month. Although in ancient times it may have been 50 days after the end of Passover, not the beginning of Passover, which would have put it on the full moon as well. The famous story about the origin of Hanukkah in the Talmud makes it sound as if the fighting between the Maccabees and the Syrian Greeks happened to end on the 25th of Kislev. But that assertion is contradicted by the testimony of First Maccabees, a book written much closer in time to the events portrayed. In that narrative, there was a protracted period of time needed to repair the ruined temple prior to the 25th day of Kislev. More on this, but first a little bit of calendar history. Nowadays, the winter solstice in the northern hemisphere occurs on December 21st, 22nd, or 23rd. But in the ancient calendar of the Greeks and Romans, December 25th was the date of the winter solstice. As such, it had a pagan religious significance. In the year 274 of the Common Era, the Roman Emperor Aurelian declared the 25th as, quote, the birthday of the invincible sun. In so doing, he was hardly innovating. The thought that the beginning of the lengthening of daylight hours was a cause for festivities is far older than Roman times. It may have even had roots as old as the Stone Age, as is evidenced by the orientation of the Neolithic monuments such as Stonehenge and Newgrange in Ireland. Each of them was constructed to make the most of the light of the rising sun on the morning of the winter solstice. In the times of the Hasmoneans, the pagan festivals of Saturnalia and Calendai bracketed the 25th day of December, the first one celebrating the 8 days preceding it, and the second one the 8 days spanning 25 December through 1 January. Instead of asking whether Hanukkah and Christmas are directly related to each other, we do better to use the pre-existing significance of the 25th day of the month at the beginning of the winter, and to ask how each of those holidays might be a response to it. I will pass quickly over the Christmas date. Among non-fundamentalist Christians, there is an easy acceptance of the thought that December 25th need not have been the literal birthday of Jesus of Nazareth, but rather was a date that resonated with the broader society. Indeed, from a Jewish standpoint, it makes sense that there is no birth date recorded for that little Galilean boy. In the entire Hebrew Scriptures, the only birthday mentioned is that of the non-Jewish Pharaoh, Genesis chapter 40. Birthdays were not culturally significant in ancient Israel, and therefore it is not surprising that they were not remembered precisely and not mentioned in the New Testament. the Hanukkah connection can be reconstructed more fully. According to our most trustworthy historical sources, the Syrian Greek tyrant Antiochus IV seized the Jerusalem temple. The 25th of Kislev is likely the date on which he converted it to use as a pagan shrine. For that reason, when Judah Maccabee rededicated the temple, it was on the anniversary of the original defilement. So here we have a quote from 1 Maccabees, chapter 4, verses 52 through 59. Now on the 25th day of the 9th month, which is called the month Kislev, in the 148th year, that is the year of the Seleucid reckoning, it's corresponding to 164 before the Common Era. They rose up betimes in the morning and offered sacrifice according to the law upon the new altar of burnt offerings which they had made. At the same time and the same day, the heathen had profaned it. Even in that was it dedicated with songs, with zithers, with harps, with cymbals. Then all the people fell upon their faces, worshiping and praising the God of heaven, who had given them good success. And so they kept the dedication of the altar 8 days, and offered burnt offerings with gladness, and sacrificed the sacrifice of deliverance and praise. They decked also the forefront of the temple with crowns of gold and with shields, and the gates and the chambers they renewed and hanged doors on them. Thus there were very great gladness among the people, for the reproach of the heathen had been put away. Moreover, Judas and his brethren with the whole congregation of Israel ordained that the days of the dedication of the altar should be kept in their season from year to year by the space of 8 days, from the 25th day of the month Kislev, with mirth and gladness. What emerges from this historical exploration is a comparative study in how two monotheistic peoples, Jews and Christians, finding their way in a culture shaped by the pagan associations of the solar calendar and its winter solstice, created parallel ways to sanctify time in keeping with their own understanding of the one God, the world, and the human spiritual quest. Chag Sameach, happy holiday.